Good morning, students. After learning almost everything about hearing physiology, today we will discuss some applied aspects regarding hearing physiology, some clinical correlates, its symptoms, and investigating procedures. So, let us start with today's class. The most common symptom associated with hearing physiology is loss of hearing, which is very commonly termed as deafness. But to be precise, deaf are those persons in whom the sense of hearing is non-functional for ordinary purposes of life. Not every hearing loss should be termed as deafness. Deafness as per WHO recommendation should be applied only to those individuals whose hearing impairment is so severe that they are unable to benefit from any type of amplification. So, when the handicap of hearing loss is extremely severe so that it can impair a person's everyday life and cannot be rectified by utmost amplification or rehabilitation procedures, it can be termed as deafness. So, hearing loss as a whole can be classified into two broad categories on the basis of its etiological factor, that is the factor causing it. One group is organic type of hearing loss and another is non-organic. In organic type of hearing loss, there is actual structural damage or lesion in the structures involved in the hearing mechanism. Organic hearing loss can again be of two types: conductive type of deafness or conductive type of hearing loss and sensory neural type of hearing loss. In conductive deafness or conductive hearing loss, there is problem associated with the pathway where the conduction of sound wave actually takes place. That is, the portion of organ starting from the external ear up to the middle ear cavity, that is the oval window, where actually sound conduction takes place. After that, beyond to this portion, when the sound waves actually enters into the inner ear, there occurs hearing transduction mechanism at the level of organ of Corti. All of you may be knowing that. And there remains the receptor organ for hearing, that is organ of Corti bearing the hair cells, and thereafter the auditory nerve. So from then onwards, any problem leading to hearing loss will be termed as sensory neural hearing loss, where the hearing transduction actually takes place. As the name implies, sensory neural hearing loss may be due to lesion or problem with the receptor organ itself, where it is called sensory type of hearing loss, and where it involves the auditory nerve or neural pathway, it is neural type of hearing loss. But as these two types are very difficult to be differentiated clinically, they are combinedly called as sensory neural type of deafness or sensory neural type of hearing loss. In sensory type, there is problem at the level of the cochlea or the receptor itself, and neural type, there is problem in the auditory pathway. In neural type of hearing loss, again we can divide the condition in two subtypes. One is peripheral and one is central. In peripheral type of neural type of deafness, there is damage to the 8th cranial nerve, that is the peripheral portion, most peripheral portion. But in central type of neural deafness, there is central auditory pathway lesions. Problem will involve the central auditory pathways or the cortex itself. So these are the types of organic form of hearing loss, where there occurs actual damage to the hearing machinery. But another group is there which is called non-organic type, where there is no organic lesion as such. There is no damage or problem with the machineries or the structures involved in the hearing transmission. It is either due to malingering or some psychogenic problem. Either the person deliberately assuming that he is having some sort of hearing loss due to any reason for any vested interest, it is called malingering, or there may be real psychological problem like hysteria or any sort of, there may be problem like hearing loss. So all these are termed as non-organic type of hearing loss. So with this classification of hearing loss or deafness in severe cases, we will start our today's discussion, where we will have a brief account of each type of this hearing loss, their clinical scenario, symptoms, signs, and investigating procedures. So the major 4 types of hearing loss that we will discuss are conductive type of hearing loss, where there is problem in the sound conduction pathway starting from the external ear up to the middle ear cavity, that is the oval window. Next comes sensory neural type of deafness, where there is problem of either cochlea or the receptor organ for hearing or the auditory pathway. There may be a combination of both, that is called mixed type of hearing loss. And there may be a central type of hearing loss, where the central auditory pathway or the cortex itself is damaged or at a fault. So all these 4 types we will discuss in short. But before starting the actual types of hearing loss, let us have a brief note how the sound is actually conducted up to the receptor for hearing, that is organ of Corti, situated within the cochlea. How do we hear? I explained in the first class that when any vibrating object in the environment produces sound, it comes to the external ear, that is the pinna, and thereafter the sound vibration is transmitted up to the middle ear and thereafter to the cochlea. But this vibration may be transmitted up to the receptor organ as such, that is the cochlea, in 2 different pathways. One may be through the external auditory pathway, external auditory canal or meatus, 3 ossicular particles, that is ossicular chain consisting of malleus incus stapes, thereafter oval window, and through that to the cochlea and the receptor organ for hearing, that is organ of Corti. Another pathway may be there which is through the skull bone, an entire bony unit putting into vibration itself, leading to transmission of sound waves up to the receptor organ of hearing, that is organ of Corti. So whenever there occurs any vibration coming to the external ear, it may be reaching to the organ of Corti in 2 pathway. One is preferential route, that is through the external auditory meatus, tympanic membrane, ossicular chain, oval window, thereafter cochlea. Another is by the vibration of the skull bone as a unit, as a whole, transmitting the vibration to the organ of Corti. Among these 2, the conventional pathway, that is preferential pathway, that is through the pinna, external auditory meatus, ossicular chain up to the oval window and thereafter organ of Corti, it is called air conduction. As the sound waves travels through the air of the external ear, thereafter middle ear, and then reaches the inner ear, that is fluid filled cavity containing organ of Corti. This is called air conduction. Another which I have told, that is through the vibration of the skull bone itself, is called bone conduction. Among these two pathways, the most efficient mechanism of sound transmission is through air conduction. In our normal hearing, air conduction is much more efficient than the bone conduction. We hear mostly due to air conducted sounds, because majority of the sound is transmitted through the air conduction through the ossicular chain up to the oval window and thereafter to the inner ear where the organ of Corti is situated. And there occurs the impedance matching mechanism, all of you know. And bone conduction mechanism comprises a smaller fraction, it is less efficient. That means we require higher threshold for bone conduction to occur, but for air conduction lower threshold of sound is sufficient for transmission process. So these two pathways we must be familiar with, that is air conduction pathway and bone conduction pathway, which are responsible for our normal hearing. Among these two, air conduction is much more efficient and therefore conducts the sound to a greater extent than the bone conduction. In short, we designate this phenomenon as AC is more than BC. This is our normal hearing conduction pattern. Air conduction is more than bone conduction. So with this background knowledge, now let us proceed to the individual type of hearing loss. First of all, let us take conductive type of hearing loss. Conductive type of hearing loss is caused by any condition or the disease that impedes the conduction of sound in its mechanical form from the external ear through the middle ear cavity to the inner ear. That means when the sound is coming from the environment, and thereafter through the external auditory meatus leading to vibration of the tympanic membrane, which is transmitted through the ossicular chain up to the oval window and thereafter enters into the inner ear cavity where the organ of Corti is situated. This entire pathway starting from the external ear up to the oval window is actually responsible for the conduction of the sound in its mechanical form. Till now, there is no formation of neural impulse or nerve impulse, which is an electrical signal, is not yet generated, which is generated at the level of the organ of Corti, that is receptor organ, hearing by through the hearing transduction mechanism. But in the external and middle ear, what occurs? There occurs only conduction of sound. So any problem in this part lead to impairment of the sound conduction, and therefore this type of hearing loss is called conductive type of hearing loss, or in severe cases conductive type of deafness. So in conductive hearing loss, the problem involves the external ear, that may be pinna, external auditory meatus, tympanic membrane, ossicular chain, middle ear cavity up to the oval window. Any sort of problem may give rise to type of hearing loss called conductive hearing loss. Now let us see what can be the problems. Conductive type of hearing loss may be due to congenital reasons like meatal atresia, where there is atresia or the constriction of the external auditory meatus. Of course, there won't be any transmission of the sound waves, which I told in the first class that through the external auditory meatus there occurs repeated reflection and concentration of the sound waves towards the tympanic membrane. This phenomenon does not occur, so there will be sort of hearing loss, meatal atresia. There may be fixation of the malleus, which restricts the movements of the ossicular chain. There may be fixation of the stapes, foot plate of stapes. There may be ossicular discontinuity, congenital cholesteatoma or the granulation tissue, which replaces all the normal structures present in the middle ear. So all these are the congenital or the developmental anomaly which may lead to congenital type of conductive hearing loss. Or there may be some acquired reasons which may hamper the sound conduction from the external ear up to the middle ear cavity, that is round window. What can be the problem? There may be impaction of the wax or the ceruminous substance plugging the external auditory meatus, which impedes the transmission of the sound waves. There may be impaction of the foreign body. Very often we suffer from this problem. There may be impaction of any foreign substances, foreign particles, especially in case of children. Playfully they may insert any hard object, and there may be problem in the hearing conduction mechanism. There may be furuncle, that is infective condition, boils, which may occlude the external auditory meatus. There may be atresia of the ear canal due to repeated infection. Now there may be problem of the tympanic membrane as such. There may be perforation of tympanic membrane, maybe due to trauma, maybe due to infection. There may be fluid in the middle ear cavity, in secretory otitis media. There may be mass in the middle ear cavity, any type of neoplastic growth, tumor. There may be eustachian tube blockage, which impedes the vibration of the tympanic membrane. For ideal vibration to occur, both sides of the tympanic membrane should have equal air pressure. But if there is blockage in the eustachian tube, the tympanic membrane may be retracted to any specific side, and there may be problem or impairment of the vibration, proper vibration of the tympanic membrane. There may be ossicular disruption. Ossicular chains may be disrupted due to infection, chronic type of otitis media, and replacement of the ossicular chain with cholesteatoma or the granulation tissue, unhealthy granulation tissue. There may be foot plate of the stapes fixation or otosclerosis. All these things may give rise to a type of conductive hearing loss, which are acquired by nature. So all these are the reasons for conductive deafness or conductive hearing loss. Now let us see what are the clinical manifestations. In the practical classes, you have already come across that we perform different hearing tests through which we can not only dictate the hearing impairment or the hearing loss of that person, but also can guess what are the type of hearing loss. So the first and most important test we perform is Rinne's test. Rinne's test actually tells what is the extent of air conduction and bone conduction, what is the pattern of sound conduction. In conductive type of deafness, air conduction becomes less than bone conduction, which is just reversal of normal phenomena. Normally we know that AC is more than BC. I have already told you air conduction is more efficient than bone conduction. But in conductive type of hearing loss, the air conduction becomes less than bone conduction, and it is called Rinne's negative. Rinne's test negative. So Rinne negative is a finding of conductive deafness. Next is Weber's test. In Weber's test, we place a vibrating fork in the middle of the forehead or the Nasion point, and we ask the subject whether he can hear more or better to any specific ear. And if he hears in any specific ear, it is called lateralization of the Weber. In conductive type of deafness, the Weber is lateralized to the affected ear. The deaf ear will hear better in Weber's test. If we place the vibrating fork in the middle of the forehead, the person will hear better to the affected ear, which is conductive hearing loss, which is having conductive hearing loss. Why so? Because in ear having conductive type of hearing loss, the masking effect of the sounds coming from the environment will be less or not at all present, which is normally present in case of normal ear, which transmits the sounds along with the masking noise from the environment to the equal extent, and therefore the bone conducted sound may be masked. But in conductive deaf ear, the masking effect of the environmental noise will be less, so the person will hear better the bone conducted sound from the forehead in case of in the side of the affected ear. So Weber will be lateralized to the affected ear where there is conductive type of hearing loss. There will be normal absolute bone conduction test because there is no problem with the neural transduction or neural transmission process. So the bone conducted sound will be transmitted to the normal extent in that person. So there will be normal absolute bone conduction test as there is no sensory neural type of hearing loss. Receptor organ and auditory pathway being intact, absolute bone conduction test will be normal. Hearing loss can hardly exceed 60 decibel. Here the hearing loss will be to some less extent, but in case of sensory neural hearing loss, the hearing loss may be much more severe. Pure tone audiometry shows there is ear bone gap. As the ear conduction becomes much less than the bone conduction efficiency, the ear bone gap will be prominent in case of pure tone audiometry. And speech discrimination is good because speech discrimination, specific capacity to distinguish the speech of different syllables will remain as such because it is the problem with sensory neural type of deafness, hearing discrimination, that the capacity to discriminate different syllables of a speech will remain intact in case of conductive deafness or conductive hearing loss. But this capacity becomes less efficient in case of sensory neural type of hearing loss. Now, let us discuss about sensory neural type of hearing loss. In sensory neural hearing loss, actually there is problem of the hearing receptor organ, that is organ of Corti, present within the cochlea, or the auditory nerve or hearing pathway as such. So combinedly they are called sensory neural type of deafness because these two are very difficult to be segregated. Sensory neural hearing loss results from inner ear or auditory nerve dysfunction. The sensory component may be from damage to the organ of Corti, especially the hair cells. There may be degeneration of the hair cells either due to trauma or due to age-related process, or maybe due to some ototoxins, maybe some drug-induced damage, or maybe some environmental pollutants. There may be metabolic problem in the fluids of the inner ear which may hamper the hearing transduction mechanism. The neural or retrocochlear component due to severe damage to the nerves of hearing may also be the reason behind sensory neural hearing loss. So, the problem with the receptor organ present in the cochlea, that is the organ of Corti, or the auditory nerve may be responsible for sensory neural deafness. Now, what are the clinical features? Before to that, the causes of sensory neural deafness. Let us see what can be the reason behind sensory neural hearing loss or sensory neural deafness. There may be acquired causes like noise induced hearing loss. If the person is continuously exposed to any loud noise, as in case of factory workers, persons working in the airports, that is aircrafts related works, there may be continuous exposure to loud noise leading to degeneration of the hair cells, mainly the outer hair cells which are very sensitive to noise induced damage. There may be damage due to ototoxins, different drugs like diuretics like furosemide, antibiotics like streptomycin, gentamicin, that is aminoglycoside group of drugs, anti-cancer drugs like cisplatin. This type of drugs may lead to damage of the hair cells or the stria vascularis, which secrete the potassium ions, So there may be problem in the hearing transduction mechanism and generation of the nerve impulse. So at the receptor level, there may be gross damage leading to sensory type of hearing loss. There may be presbyacousis. You know, presbyopia is the age-related loss of accommodation. In vision, you have learned this. So here, in case of hearing physiology, the term is presbyacousis. Presbyacousis is gradual hearing loss associated with aging, gradual cumulative loss of hair cells, degeneration of cells of spiral ganglion, atrophy of the stria vascularis, stiffening of the basilar membrane, etc. All these are the age-related changes of the inner ear structures which are involved in the hearing transduction mechanism. Usually, it starts at 65 but maybe earlier even due to different underlying disorders like diabetes mellitus, etc. It affects 1/3 population above 75 years. Higher tones are mostly affected. High pitch sounds cannot be discriminated, cannot be heard properly. Sensorineural deafness may be due to different infections like viral, bacterial, spirochetal. So, these are the infective cause. There may be acoustic trauma. Trauma to the inner ear structures may be a part of the head injury as such. There may be permanent damage to the hearing apparatus from sudden brief exposure to explosive sound intensity. This may also damage the organ of Corti, like bomb blast, sound of bomb blast, sound of lightning thunder. So there may be trauma to the receptor organ for hearing, that is organ of Corti. And you know, there is enough defensive mechanism against that, that is attenuation reflex, but this may not be sufficient to protect our inner ear structures from very loud noise sometimes, leading to acoustic trauma. There may be neoplasm, acoustic neuroma, that is tumor arising out of auditory nerve, that may cause faulty transmission of the hearing impulse. Head injury, I have already told. There may be metabolic disorders like diabetes, hypertension, which are responsible for sensorineural type of deafness. So these are the causes for sensorineural type of deafness which are acquired by nature, that is after birth. But there may be some congenital reasons also, which may be developmental anomaly of the inner ear, and there may be some genetic disorders which may be monogenic by nature or may be polygenomic, involvement of multiple genes, monogenomic or polygenomic. The genetic causes for sensorineural deafness may lead to two types of sensorineural hearing loss on the basis of their associated symptoms or associated other problems. Two different types of sensorineural hearing loss may be there. One is called syndromic type, one is non-syndromic type. In syndromic type of congenital sensorineural type of hearing loss, there is association of some other abnormalities, other systemic abnormalities in the body along with the hearing loss. In syndromic hearing loss, the similar type of channels or the proteins getting affected may give rise to symptoms of different symptoms, giving rise to symptoms of different systems. Syndromic means hearing loss associated with other abnormalities, and which is basically monogenic forms of deafness. So syndromic type is basically monogenomic type of sensorineural deafness. And the examples of syndromic hearing loss are Pendred syndrome, very common, where the deafness is associated with goiter due to mutation in multifactorial anion exchanger. There may be long QT syndrome, where there is mutation of the potassium channel protein called KVLQ-T1, which is responsible for the sensorineural type of hearing loss as well as prolongation of the QT interval at heart. All these are due to mutation of the potassium channel protein. There may be Bartter syndrome, where there is mutation in the Bartin protein causing deafness and renal dysfunction. So these are the example of syndromic type of hearing loss. There may be another type called non-syndromic type of sensory neural deafness, where there is polygenomic affection and only hearing loss is present. No other symptoms or no other systemic abnormality is present over there. The most common type is mutation in gene for connexin 26 protein, which is required for potassium recycling through the substanticular cells. Of course, it hampers the hearing transduction mechanism and therefore sensory type of hearing loss. There may be mutations in the genes for different myosins associated with hair cell function, and there will be gross dysfunction of the tip links activities. There may be mutation in the gene for alpha tectin, which is a component of tectorial membrane. So all these are the examples of non-syndromic type of hearing loss, which are the congenital form of sensory neural type of hearing loss, and no other systemic abnormalities is there. So these are the causes for sensory neural type of deafness. Now let us see what are the features of sensory neural type of deafness. Here, on the contrary to the conductive deafness, Rennie's test remains positive. What does it mean? That means ear conduction remains more than bone conduction, though the extent of both will be reduced than the normal person. AC and BC, that is ear conduction and bone conduction, both will be reduced in extent than a normal person, but the pattern, that is AC more than BC, will be still retained in case of sensory neural type of deafness, and that is called Rennie positive. So if we find Rennie positive, we can infer that the person either is normal in hearing or may be having sensory neural type of hearing loss. To confirm that, we will go for Weber's test. You know what is Weber's test? I have already told. In Weber's test, in sensory neural deafness, the better ear will hear to the greater extent, that the person will hear better to the normal ear, that the ear which is not having any type of sensory neural deafness, normal ear will hear better, and the sensory neural deafness ear having sensory neural type of hearing loss will be hearing less. So if I ask the person to which ear you are hearing more, and if he points out to any specific ear, we can be sure that the opposite ear will be having sensory neural type of deafness if the Rennie is positive. There will be reduced absolute bone conduction test. I have already mentioned that air conduction and bone conduction both will be reduced than a normal person in extent, but the pattern will be retained, that AC will be more than BC, so the Rennie will be positive. Air conduction, bone conduction, both will be reduced than a normal person. So absolute bone conduction test, which is the comparison between the person and the examiner himself, examiner being considered as normal. So the absolute bone conduction test result will show reduced absolute bone conduction test in the person, in that specific ear which is having sensory neural deafness. The hearing loss may be profound. It may exceed 60 decibel. Audiometry shows there is no ear bone gap because normal hearing pattern is maintained and speech discrimination capacity is poor. So these are the features of sensory neural deafness. Now there is another type I have already mentioned, that is mixed hearing loss. A mixed hearing loss can be thought of as a sensory neural hearing loss with a conductive component. The conductive component may be amenable to treatment and reversal of associated hearing loss is possible, but the sensory neural component, it is very difficult to manage. Mostly it is permanent by nature and may require rehabilitative measure like cochlear implant. Stem cell therapy is a newer modality of management which may help. Now something about central type of hearing loss. In central type of hearing loss, there is problem with the auditory nerve or the cortical centers. Sound waves may travel through the ear, but this nerve pathway is unable to send electrical impulse to the brain. There is problem at the higher levels of the auditory pathway or maybe at different relay stations. Central hearing loss can be resulted out of head injury or different neoplastic growth at different level. A common symptom is ability to detect sound but not being able to understand it. Not only that, the critical attributes of sound like its pitch, its loudness, its direction cannot be discerned, cannot be appreciated normally like a normal person. So the auditory functions, that is cortical functions of hearing perception, will be reduced or lost in central type of hearing loss. There is a special form of central hearing loss that is called word deafness. Here there occurs damage or lesion to the auditory association area, which is responsible for the meaningful extraction of the auditory input. When the sound impulse travels to the auditory nerve, reaches the primary auditory cortex, we just hear the sound, we just perceive the sound. But when it is analyzed by the auditory association area, we can appreciate the nature of the sound, its timbre, that is the character, its direction, its loudness, its frequency, and the meaning of it is extracted by another association area, that is Wernicke's area. But if any of these association cortices are at fault or damaged due to any reason, the extraction of the meaning of the sound auditory input may be lost. So the person may hear the sound but cannot extract its meaning, and this type of deafness is often called word deafness. So the person cannot extract the meaning of the sound. So this is a type or form of central hearing loss. Now, noise or masking. Something about noise or masking. What is noise? A noise is an aperiodic complex sound. Aperiodic complex sound. Noise may be white noise or narrow band noise. White noise, broadband noise containing all frequencies in audible spectrum, and narrow band noise, white noise out of which certain frequencies above and below are filtered out. This can be done by specific machinery. Speech noise, it is noise having all frequencies in a speaking range, that is 300 to 3000 Hz. That is aperiodic complex mixture of sound which does not give rise to any specific auditory transmission giving rise to any meaningful extraction. This is noise. Now what is masking? A phenomenon in which the presence of one type of sound decreases the ability of the ear to hear another sound. Auditory nerves becomes refractory due to stimulation by background sound. Low frequency sounds are more efficient in masking than the higher frequency sounds. Application of masking is done in different investigative procedures. In Weber's test, masking is applied. In clinical audiometry, the masking process is involved. Now something about different hearing tests. In clinical assessment of hearing, we use different tests that have already been taught in practical classes. I am just mentioning in brief. These are watch test, which is very rough assessment of hearing where there is no availability of tuning fork or any specific gadget. In bedside, we can use ticking watch to observe at which distance the person can just hear the ticking sound of a watch. with his closed eyes, and we will assess whether we can hear, the normal person with normal hearing can also hear from the same distance. Whisper recognition test. Then tuning fork tests. Tuning fork tests are specific for discerning hearing loss and its specific types. Tuning fork tests may be Rennie's test, may be Weber's test, Skobach's test, or absolute bone conduction tests. All these things have been taught in detail in your practical classes. I am not going in detail. In Rennie's test, we just detect whether air conduction is more than bone conduction, then we call it to be Rennie positive, and where air conduction becomes less than bone conduction, it is Rennie negative, which is a feature of conductive type of hearing loss. And if Rennie is positive, the person may be having normal hearing or may be having sensory neural type of deafness. Then we go for Weber's test. In Weber's test, a vibrating fork is placed at the center of the forehead, and the person is asked whether he can hear better to any specific ear. If he hears to any specific ear, it is called lateralization of the Weber's test. In conductive deafness, the Weber is lateralized to the deaf ear, whether in sensory neural deafness, the Weber is lateralized to the better ear. In Skobach test, the person's bone conduction is compared to that of the examiner. Examiner is supposed to be normal, person with normal hearing. In absolute bone conduction test, the air conduction is thoroughly occluded by pressing the tragus against the external auditory meatus and blocking the air conducted sound. So here the bone conduction is compared absolutely between the person concerned and the examiner himself. Examiner is considered to be normal, and it is judged whether the bone conduction is reduced or normal to that of the examiner. In sensory neural type of deafness, absolute bone conduction test shows much reduced bone conduction than the examiner. And in laboratory, different hearing tests are there available for assessing the extent of hearing loss as well as to discern type of hearing loss. These are audiometry, which is a subjective type of clinical assessment of hearing acuity by using a special device called audiometer. Audiometer, the purpose of audiometer is to produce sound of specific frequencies called pure tones. Pure tone of different frequencies in human audibility are given to the test ear at various intensities, while other one is masked. The audible intensities of different frequencies are determined and plotted over a chart. The curve produced helps in diagnosis of the type and extent of hearing loss, and it is called audiogram. But here one problem is that audiometry is thoroughly dependent on the person's compliance and person's own response. So it is subjective by nature, and there is enough scope of malingering. This is the audiometric recording. I am not going in detail. Here the air conduction and bone conduction are plotted differently, and the any gap in between these two are recorded. Next is brainstem evoked response audiometry, or BERA. This is an objective assessment of hearing acuity. Here the test result does not depend on the subject's compliance. Even in unconscious persons or children or malingering persons, this type of hearing test can be applied to assess whether the person can really hear. After giving some adequate stimulus, that is sound of different intensities, we see whether it can travel along the afferent tract through different relay stations towards the cortex. And whenever the sound wave travels along this pathway through different relay stations, there occurs generation of some potential difference at every relay point, which can be picked up by the surface electrode over the scalp and the forehead and recorded graphically on a computerized screen. Usually, wave formation within first 10 milliseconds of acoustic stimulus are analyzed, which are designated as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 graphical representations are analyzed as early response of BERA and used for assessing hearing adequacy. The beauty of brainstem evoked response audiometry is that it is objective by nature, so does not depend on the compliance of the subject. So it can overcome the problem of subjectivity, malingering, unconsciousness or uncooperative nature of the subject, that is in case of children, has got medical legal importance, can be used for certification purpose whether the person is really deaf, and can be used for children unconscious and malingering patients, I have already mentioned. This is a graphical representation of BERA recording. I am just showing you. You are seeing that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 waveforms are usually generated after 10 milliseconds of acoustic stimulus. Their latency and their amplitude are analyzed and compared with the normal person and standard waveforms, and different disease conditions are assessed. So this is what is BERA. So these are all about clinical aspects of hearing physiology in nutshell. Different type of hearing loss, their clinical manifestations, their reasons, that is causes for them, and their investigating procedures. I hope you have understood the topic, and if there is any query or doubt, please place your queries on WhatsApp. I will try to address all of your queries and we will discuss accordingly. Thank you all.